Are you ready to become the best version of yourself? Imagine effortlessly achieving what once seemed impossible. What if you could stop working harder and start growing smarter? It's not about talent or luck. It's about a system anyone can master. If you're tired of missed opportunities, feeling stuck, or losing momentum, then this book is exactly what you've been looking for. Inside Grow Without Limits: The Secret to Effortless Personal Growth. Discover the hidden reason you're exhausted before noon. Why your brain secretly fights your goals. The trick elite performers use to achieve consistent growth. How tiny daily actions unlock massive improvements. And much, much more. Stop wondering what you're capable of, unlock your potential today, and start growing without limits. Chapter 1: Your Launchpad. Picture this. Two ambitious professionals start their careers at the exact same company, same role, same salary. 5 years later, one has doubled their income, leads a team of 12, and radiates unshakable confidence in every meeting. The other, still grinding at the same desk, watching opportunities slip past like missed trains. What separated them wasn't talent, luck, or connections. It was a single realization that changed everything. Growth isn't about working harder. It's about building a system that makes progress inevitable. You're about to discover that system. Not another motivation hit that fades by Thursday, but a precision-engineered framework that turns personal development into a self-reinforcing flywheel. By the time you finish this book, you won't just understand how elite performers think, you'll have rewired your brain to operate like one. Here's what's killing your momentum right now, and you might not even realize it. First, decision fatigue is bleeding your focus dry. The average professional makes 35,000 decisions per day. Each choice, what to prioritize, how to respond to that email, whether to take that call, drains cognitive resources before meaningful work even begins. You're exhausted by 10 a.m., not because you're weak, but because your mental operating system is fundamentally broken. Second, fixed mindset ceilings are freezing your potential. Every time you think, I'm not good at public speaking, or I'm not a numbers person, you're installing invisible barriers. Your brain, designed to conserve energy, stops building neural pathways in those areas. What feels like natural limitation is actually learned helplessness masquerading as self-awareness. And third, friction-laden habits are sabotaging your willpower. You rely on motivation to exercise, discipline to focus, and inspiration to create. But motivation is a fire. It burns bright, then dies without constant fuel. Meanwhile, your environment works against you. Notifications hijack attention, poor systems create unnecessary resistance, and every small frustration compounds into massive energy drain. Here's the brutal truth. If you don't act now, this pattern accelerates. Compounding stagnation becomes your new normal. That skill gap you notice today, it widens every month while others advance. Your competence plateaus, but the world keeps moving. 5 years from now, you'll be the same person in a faster world, relatively weaker, not because you declined, but because you stood still. The opportunity cost is staggering. Right now, someone with sharper decision-making skills is getting the promotion you want. Someone who's mastered effortless focus is closing deals while you're still organizing your to-do list. Someone who's built identity-based habits is achieving in months what takes you years. Worst of all, your self-trust erodes. Every missed deadline, every abandoned goal, every moment of "I should be further along by now" chips away at your confidence. Second-guessing becomes your default mode. You start playing it safe, avoiding challenges, settling for good enough. That's not humility. That's potential dying a slow death. But here's what changes everything. You can reverse this spiral in the next 30 days. Your first milestone is crafting a growth charter. One crystal clear outcome, one measurable metric, one non-negotiable 30-day commitment. Not a vague wish like "get healthier," but a precise target like "complete 3 90-minute deep work sessions weekly for 4 weeks straight." Specificity collapses hesitation. Your brain craves clarity. Give it a target and watch motivation surge. Next, you'll install a bias-proof decision template. Every tough choice gets filtered through 3 questions. What's the real problem? What would success look like? What's the smallest next step? This framework cuts decision time by 60% while improving quality. No more analysis paralysis, no more second guessing, no more mental energy wasted on circular thinking. Finally, you'll schedule your first 90-minute flow sprint in tomorrow's calendar. Not next week, not when things calm down, tomorrow. Flow isn't luck, it's engineered. When challenge meets skill at your peak alertness window, your brain releases a cocktail of focus chemicals that makes hard work feel effortless. These aren't just productivity hacks, they're the foundation of neural rewiring. Over time, tasks that once drained you will feel lighter as your brain builds efficiency through myelination. Each skill you master frees cognitive bandwidth for the next challenge. Your confidence shifts from brittle hope to quiet certainty. You stop asking, "Can I do this?" and start asking, "How fast can I learn this?" The system you're about to build follows a precise sequence. Belief change unlocks new behaviors. Automated behaviors free mental energy for depth work. Depth work reveals friction points for micro improvements, and self-monitoring keeps the entire flywheel spinning faster each cycle. This order isn't arbitrary. It's based on how your brain actually changes. You can't build lasting habits on shaky beliefs. You can't sustain deep work without automated routines. You can't optimize what you don't measure. Each chapter builds on the last, creating momentum that becomes unstoppable. The difference between winners and losers isn't talent, it's attitude. Winners hunt bottlenecks like treasure hunters. When progress stalls, they ask, "What's the constraint?" and attack it systematically. Losers make excuses, blame circumstances, wait for conditions to improve. Winners measure everything that matters. They track leading indicators, celebrate small wins, course correct based on data. Losers wing it, rely on feelings, wonder why results stay inconsistent. Winners act despite imperfection. They know done beats perfect, iteration beats hesitation, momentum beats precision. Losers wait for the perfect plan, the right moment, the ideal conditions, and watch opportunities vanish while they prepare. You have two paths ahead of you. One leads to the same frustrations, the same limitations, the same quiet desperation of unrealized potential. The other leads to a version of yourself that seems almost fictional right now, someone who grows effortlessly, decides confidently, and achieves consistently. The choice is yours, but the window is closing. Every day you delay is another day your competition pulls ahead, another day your potential remains locked away, another day closer to looking back with regret instead of pride. But there's something else you need to know about this system, something that will determine whether you join the 3% who actually transform their lives or the 97% who read, nod, and change nothing. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, Limitless Wiring. Your brain is lying to you. Right now, as you read these words, your neural circuits are whispering a devastating fiction. This is as good as you get. Every time you struggle with a presentation, stumble through a negotiation, or feel overwhelmed by complexity, that voice gets louder. You're not a natural leader. Numbers aren't your thing. Some people are just born with it. Here's what that voice doesn't want you to know. Every limitation you accept as permanent is actually a circuit that needs more reps. The most successful people on the planet share one secret that separates them from everyone else. It's not superior genetics, privileged backgrounds, or lucky breaks. It's something far more powerful and completely within your control. They've discovered how to rewire their brains on demand. Think about that for a moment. While most people accept their current capabilities as fixed, elite performers are literally rebuilding their neural architecture to match their ambitions. They've cracked the code on something neuroscientists call limitless wiring, the ability to expand mental capacity as easily as upgrading computer hardware. This isn't motivational fluff. This is hard science. When researchers at Stanford tracked 12,000 students across multiple schools, they discovered something remarkable. A single 50-minute online session that taught students about brain plasticity lifted GPAs and cut failure rates by 5%. Think about that impact. 1 hour of understanding how the brain actually works created measurable academic improvement across thousands of students. But here's where it gets really interesting. The students who benefited most weren't the naturally gifted ones. They were the strugglers, the ones who'd been told they weren't smart enough or didn't have what it takes. Once they understood that intelligence is expandable, their performance skyrocketed. The brain doesn't care about your current limitations. It only cares about what you repeatedly ask it to do. Every time you practice a skill, your brain responds by thickening the myelin sheaths around relevant neural pathways. Think of myelin as insulation on electrical wires. The thicker it gets, the faster signals travel. This is why experts make difficult tasks look effortless. Their neural highways have been upgraded to superhighway status through deliberate practice. German researchers proved this using MRI scans of people learning to juggle. After just 6 weeks of practice, participants showed measurable increases in gray matter in visual motor areas of the brain. But here's the crucial part. When they stopped practicing, those brain changes reversed. Use it or lose it isn't just a saying, it's a biological law. Your brain is constantly remodeling itself based on what you do most often. Every thought, every action, every repeated behavior is literally sculpting your neural architecture. The question isn't whether your brain will change, it's whether you'll direct that change or let it happen by accident. Most people let it happen by accident. They repeat the same mental patterns, reinforce the same limitations, and wonder why growth feels impossible. They're accidentally training their brains to stay stuck. But you're about to flip that script. The first step is recognizing that every "I can't" statement is actually "my circuit needs reps" in disguise. When you say, "I'm not good at public speaking," what you're really saying is, "My public speaking neural pathways are underdeveloped." When you claim, "I'm not a strategic thinker," you mean, "My strategic thinking circuits need more training." This reframe changes everything. Suddenly, limitations become projects, weaknesses become opportunities, fixed traits become trainable skills. Take 3 areas where you feel stuck right now. Maybe it's leading difficult conversations, analyzing complex data, or thinking creatively under pressure. Instead of accepting these as permanent weaknesses, label them as underdeveloped circuits. Feel the shift? You've just transformed identity-level limitations into skill-building challenges. Now comes the precision work. Your brain responds best to what neuroscientists call deliberate neuroplastic stressors, focused practice sessions that push your current capabilities just beyond their comfort zone. Not so easy that you coast, not so hard that you panic, but right at the edge where growth happens. Schedule these micro-practice bursts during your peak alertness windows. Your brain's plasticity isn't constant throughout the day. It peaks when your attention is sharpest and your stress hormones are optimally balanced. For most people, this happens in the first few hours after waking, and again in late afternoon. Here's where most people go wrong. They practice randomly and wonder why progress stalls. Elite performers track their neural wins obsessively. They measure speed improvements, accuracy gains, and complexity thresholds weekly. What gets measured gets optimized. But tracking isn't enough. You need to amplify the growth signal through strategic novelty spikes. Your brain pays attention to new patterns, unexpected challenges, and unfamiliar contexts. If you're developing presentation skills, don't just practice the same speech repeatedly. Vary your audience, change your setting, add time pressure, remove visual aids. Each variation forces your brain to build more robust, flexible circuits. The magic happens when you pair practice with immediate feedback loops. Your brain learns fastest when it gets instant information about performance quality. This is why video games are so addictive. They provide constant feedback that drives rapid skill acquisition. Build this principle into your training. Record yourself. Use apps that track performance. Find mentors who give real-time corrections. When this system clicks, 3 levels of transformation become possible. At the good level, you'll notice one targeted skill becoming noticeably easier. Tasks that once required intense concentration start feeling more natural. You'll catch yourself performing complex actions without conscious effort. At the excellent level, something remarkable happens: cross-domain skill transfer. The logical thinking you develop through coding starts improving your strategic planning. The pattern recognition you build through chess enhances your market analysis. Your brain begins connecting insights across seemingly unrelated areas. But at the best level, your entire identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone with fixed capabilities and start identifying as a permanent learner. This isn't just a mindset change, it's a fundamental rewiring of how you relate to challenge, failure, and growth. You become someone who gets excited by difficulty because you know it signals opportunity for expansion. 2 things can derail this process, and you need to watch for both. The first is overload. When you push too hard too fast, your brain activates stress responses that actually inhibit plasticity. If you feel overwhelmed, shrink the practice session and focus on perfect form rather than intensity. Better to build slowly than to burn out completely. The second is plateau. After initial rapid gains, progress often seems to stall. This is normal. Your brain is consolidating gains before the next growth spurt. When plateau hits, inject complexity or switch modalities. If you've been practicing verbal presentations, try visual storytelling. If you've been analyzing written reports, try real-time data interpretation. Your brain craves novelty and challenge. Give it both, and watch your capabilities expand beyond what you thought possible. But there's something else happening during this rewiring process. Something that determines whether these new capabilities stick or fade away like forgotten dreams. It has to do with how you see yourself, and it's more powerful than any practice routine you could design. Chapter 3, Identity Loops. There's a hidden force controlling your behavior right now, and it's not what you think. You believe willpower drives your actions. You assume motivation determines your choices. You think discipline separates high performers from everyone else. But you're missing the real puppet master, the quiet voice in your head that whispers, "This is who I am," every time you face a decision. That voice is your identity, and it's either your greatest asset or your biggest limitation. Most people fight themselves every single day without realizing it. They want to become disciplined, but their identity says, "I'm disorganized." They want to lead with confidence, but their self-story insists, "I'm not leadership material." They want to think strategically, but their inner narrative claims, "I'm just not that type of person." This internal conflict burns through willpower like a furnace. Every positive action requires you to override who you think you are. No wonder change feels so exhausting. But what if there was a way to make your identity work for you instead of against you? What if the same psychological force that keeps you stuck could become the engine that drives effortless transformation? Welcome to the most powerful behavior change secret on the planet, identity loops. When researchers at Wharton studied 60,000 gym members over 28 days, they discovered something that revolutionizes how we think about habit formation. Members who received identity-based prompts, messages that reinforced their self-image as exercisers, showed up 20% more often than those who got generic motivational reminders. Think about that. The same people, the same gym, the same goals. The only difference was how the behavior connected to their sense of self. When working out became proof of who I am rather than something I should do, consistency skyrocketed. Your brain is wired to seek consistency between your actions and your identity. When these align, behavior feels natural, effortless, even inevitable. When they conflict, every positive choice becomes a battle. This is why New Year's resolutions fail at a 92% rate. People try to change behavior without changing identity. They want to exercise regularly while still seeing themselves as not a gym person. They want to wake up early while maintaining the identity of night owl. They're fighting their own psychological operating system. But here's the breakthrough. You can hijack this system and make it work in your favor. The secret lies in understanding how identity actually forms. You don't become confident and then act confidently. You act confidently, repeatedly, until confidence becomes who you are. Identity follows behavior, not the other way around. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Skip the gym once, and you're still a healthy person who missed a workout. Skip it consistently, and you become someone who doesn't exercise. Show up once, and you're trying to be healthy. Show up consistently, and you become an athlete. The magic happens when you design what I call identity loops, micro behaviors that continuously reinforce your aspirational self-image while feeling completely natural to execute. Start by declaring one aspirational persona, not a vague wish like successful person, but a specific identity with clear behavioral signatures: strategic thinker, decisive leader, continuous learner, systems optimizer. Pick one that makes your pulse quicken slightly when you imagine embodying it fully. Now comes the precision work. You need to craft a 2-minute ritual that lets you live that persona daily. If you want to become a strategic thinker, your ritual might be spending 2 minutes each morning asking, "What's the real problem I'm solving today?" If you're building the identity of a decisive leader, you might commit to making one difficult decision within the first hour of your workday. The key is making it so small that skipping feels ridiculous. 2 minutes is nothing. Anyone can find 2 minutes. But those 2 minutes become daily proof that you are who you say you want to be. Here's where most people sabotage themselves. They design rituals that feel like work instead of identity expression. The ritual shouldn't feel like you're trying to become someone new. It should feel like you're simply being who you already are. This is why environmental anchors are crucial. Your desktop wallpaper, phone lock screen, and workspace setup should whisper, "This is what someone like me does." If you're becoming a strategic thinker, surround yourself with visual reminders of systems thinking. If you're building decisive leadership, create environmental cues that prompt quick decision-making. But the real power emerges when you celebrate completion with micro rewards that validate the identity story. Not external rewards like buying yourself something, but internal recognition that reinforces the narrative. After completing your 2-minute strategic thinking ritual, take a moment to acknowledge that's what strategic thinkers do. After making a quick decision, remind yourself, I'm becoming someone who acts decisively. These micro-celebrations trigger dopamine release that strengthens the neural pathways connecting behavior to identity. Your brain starts craving the behavior because it craves the identity validation. Track your streaks visually to amplify this effect. A simple calendar with check marks becomes powerful identity evidence. Each mark isn't just proof of what you did, it's proof of who you're becoming. Your brain loves patterns, and a growing streak becomes irresistible momentum. When this system clicks, 3 levels of transformation become possible. At the good level, your routine sticks for at least 14 days. You've successfully installed a new behavioral pattern that feels sustainable rather than forced. The action starts feeling like just what you do, rather than something you have to remember. At the excellent level, the habit triggers without conscious thought. You find yourself executing the behavior automatically, often before you even realize you're doing it. The identity has begun to drive the behavior rather than willpower forcing the action. But at the best level, something remarkable happens: cascading behavior change across domains. When you truly embody one identity, related behaviors start shifting automatically. Become a strategic thinker, and you'll notice yourself naturally asking better questions in meetings, planning projects more systematically, and approaching problems with greater clarity. The identity becomes a lens that transforms how you see and respond to everything. 2 obstacles can derail this process, and you need to prepare for both. The first is identity conflict. Your old self-story will fight the new one. When you miss a day or make a mistake, that familiar voice will whisper, "See, you're not really that type of person." Prepare counterscripts in advance. Strategic thinkers sometimes have off days, but they always return to thinking systematically. Decisive leaders occasionally need more information, but they don't let analysis paralysis become their default. The second is reward fatigue. If you use the same micro-celebration repeatedly, it loses impact. Rotate your validation methods monthly. Sometimes it's internal acknowledgement, sometimes it's updating a progress tracker, sometimes it's sharing the win with someone who supports your growth. Your identity is not fixed. It's not determined by your past, your genetics, or your circumstances. It's determined by the story you tell yourself about who you are. And that story is rewritten every single day through your actions. Most people let this rewriting happen accidentally. They repeat old patterns, reinforce limiting beliefs, and wonder why change feels impossible. But you're about to take conscious control of this process. The identity you build through these loops becomes the foundation for everything that follows. But there's something even more powerful waiting, a state of being where your new capabilities don't just feel natural, they feel inevitable. And it has everything to do with finding your perfect rhythm. Chapter 4, Rhythmic Flow. There's a hidden pattern governing your best work, and most people never discover it. You've experienced it before, those rare moments when time seems to dissolve, when complex tasks feel effortless, when you're so absorbed in what you're doing that the outside world fades away. Hours pass like minutes. Your mind operates with laser precision. Everything clicks. Then it vanishes. You spend weeks chasing that feeling, wondering if it was just luck, waiting for inspiration to strike again. You assume it's random, unpredictable, beyond your control. You're wrong. What you experienced wasn't mystical inspiration or a lucky accident. It was your brain operating in its optimal state, a neurochemical symphony that can be triggered on demand once you understand the hidden rhythm that governs peak performance. Scientists call this state flow, but that clinical term doesn't capture its transformative power. When you're in flow, you don't just work better, you become better. Your capabilities expand in real time. Problems that normally overwhelm you become engaging puzzles. Tasks that usually drain your energy start feeding it back to you. The secret lies in something most people never consider. Your brain has a natural rhythm, and when you align your most challenging work with its peaks, magic happens. Every 90 to 100 minutes, your alertness cycles through predictable waves. This isn't just about feeling tired or energized. It's about fundamental changes in your neural chemistry that determine whether you'll struggle or soar through demanding tasks. These are called ultradian rhythms, and they're as real and measurable as your heartbeat. During peak phases, your brain releases optimal levels of norepinephrine and dopamine, the focus cocktail that makes sustained attention feel natural rather than forced. Your prefrontal cortex operates at maximum efficiency. Your working memory expands. Your pattern recognition sharpens. During valley phases, these chemicals drop. Your attention scatters. Complex thinking feels like pushing through mud. You check your phone, browse the internet, look for any excuse to avoid deep work. Most people fight their valleys and waste their peaks. They schedule meetings during their sharpest hours and attempt creative work when their brain is running on fumes. Then they wonder why productivity feels like such a struggle. But what if you could flip this script? What if you could consistently hit your peaks with your most important work, turning your natural rhythm into a competitive advantage? The research is stunning. When psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi equipped thousands of people with beepers that randomly prompted them to record their experience, he discovered something remarkable. Peak satisfaction and performance consistently occurred during activities that balanced high challenge with high skill. Not easy tasks that felt comfortable, not impossible tasks that felt overwhelming, but challenges that stretched people just beyond their current capabilities. This is the first key to triggering flow, matching task difficulty to your current skill level with surgical precision. Too easy, and your brain disengages from boredom. Too hard, and anxiety hijacks your focus. But right at the edge, about 4% beyond your comfort zone, your brain lights up with focused intensity. The second key is protecting your peak windows from digital noise. Every notification, every interruption, every context switch pulls you out of the delicate neurochemical state that enables deep focus. Your brain needs unbroken time to build the momentum that creates flow. This is where most productivity advice fails. It tells you to work harder, longer, with more discipline. But flow isn't about grinding, it's about aligning. When you sync challenging work with your natural peaks and eliminate distractions, effort transforms into engagement. Start by mapping tomorrow in 90-minute segments. Most people think in terms of hours or half-days, but your brain operates in these shorter cycles. Identify your first peak. For most people, this happens within the first few hours of waking. This is your golden window. Guard it like treasure. Front-load your hardest task to this first alertness peak. Not email, not meetings, not administrative work, your most cognitively demanding challenge. The work that requires your absolute best thinking. When your brain is operating at maximum capacity, that's when you tackle what matters most. But here's the counterintuitive part. Longer isn't better. After 90 minutes, your brain needs a break whether you feel like it or not. The neurochemicals that enable flow start depleting. Your attention begins fragmenting. Push through, and you'll spend the next hour producing mediocre work while burning out your system. Instead, exit flow intentionally. Take 5 minutes to capture what you've learned, what you've accomplished, and what you want to tackle in your next session. This reflection period serves two purposes. It consolidates the insights you've gained, and it creates a bridge back into flow when you return. Use auditory triggers to prime your focus. Your brain loves patterns, and a specific song or soundscape can become a Pavlovian cue for deep work. Play the same track at the beginning of each flow session, and within days, hearing those first notes will shift your mental state toward focused attention. Here's an advanced technique that multiplies your flow frequency. End sessions mid-sentence. When you're in the middle of a thought, a paragraph, or a problem, your brain maintains active engagement even during breaks. This makes re-entry into flow dramatically faster. Instead of starting cold, you're picking up a thread that's still alive in your working memory. When this system clicks, 3 levels of mastery become possible. At the good level, you'll achieve 1 solid flow bout per day. That's 90 minutes of work that feels effortless but produces exceptional results. You'll notice tasks that normally take hours compressing into focused bursts of high-quality output. At the excellent level, you'll hit 2 flow sessions daily. Your backlog will start shrinking noticeably. Projects that have been stalled for weeks will suddenly accelerate. You'll find yourself looking forward to challenging work instead of dreading it. But at the best level, something profound happens. Your identity shifts to I live in flow. Deep work becomes your default mode rather than something you occasionally achieve. You'll consistently operate at 4+ hours of peak cognitive performance daily while feeling less stressed and more energized than when you were grinding through unfocused work. 2 obstacles can derail this process, and you need strategies for both. The first is energy dips mid-block. Sometimes your alertness crashes before the 90 minutes are up. Don't fight it, work with it. Take a micro stretch, hydrate, then resume. These brief resets often restore focus without breaking the flow state completely. The second is over-challenge panic. When a task feels too difficult, anxiety floods your system and destroys flow. The fix is simple. Slice the challenge into 15-minute sub-goals. Instead of complete the strategic analysis, aim for outline the key questions or gather the first data set. Smaller targets restore confidence and rebuild momentum. Your brain craves this rhythm. It wants to cycle between intense focus and restorative breaks. It wants to tackle meaningful challenges during peak states. It wants to operate in flow more than it wants to scroll social media or sit through pointless meetings. But there's something even more powerful than finding your rhythm. Something that makes peak performance feel not just natural, but inevitable. It's about discovering the secret of working with the current instead of against it, and it changes everything about how you approach effort itself. Chapter 5: Effortless Action. Watch a master at work, and you'll notice something that defies everything you've been taught about achievement. They don't strain, they don't grind, they don't push through resistance with brute force. Instead, they seem to glide through complex tasks with an ease that looks almost supernatural. While others exhaust themselves fighting friction, masters have discovered something profound. The secret isn't working harder, it's working with the current instead of against it. This principle has a name in ancient Chinese philosophy, Wu Wei, literally translated as non-action, but that's misleading. Wu Wei isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing everything with perfect alignment. It's the difference between swimming upstream and riding a powerful river toward your destination. Most people approach their work like they're pushing a boulder uphill. Every task requires maximum effort. Every project demands willpower. Every goal feels like a battle against resistance. They've been conditioned to believe that struggle equals progress, that effort equals results, that if it's not hard, it's not worthwhile. But what if the opposite were true? What if the highest performers have discovered how to make difficult tasks feel effortless by eliminating friction instead of overpowering it? The research is eye-opening. When Harvard psychologist Ellen Langer conducted field experiments on perceived effort, she discovered something remarkable. People performing identical tasks reported 27% less effort when they reframed those tasks as chosen rather than imposed. Same work, same results, dramatically different experience, all because of how they mentally positioned the activity. Your brain is constantly calculating the energy cost of every action. When it perceives high friction, it triggers resistance. When it senses alignment, it releases energy. The difference isn't just psychological, it's neurochemical. Aligned action feels good because it literally is good for your nervous system. This is why some people seem to have unlimited energy while others burn out quickly. It's not about superior genetics or better willpower. It's about designing an environment and approach that pulls you forward instead of requiring you to push through resistance. Think about the last time you felt completely absorbed in an activity. Maybe you were solving a fascinating problem, having an engaging conversation, or working on a project you cared deeply about. Time flew by, energy flowed freely. You could have continued for hours without fatigue. Now contrast that with your typical Tuesday afternoon. Checking email feels like trudging through mud. Meetings drain your life force. Simple tasks require heroic effort. By 3 p.m., you're mentally exhausted, despite producing little meaningful work. The difference isn't the work itself, it's the friction surrounding the work. Friction comes in many forms. Physical friction, poor lighting that strains your eyes, an uncomfortable chair that creates tension, tools that don't work smoothly. Cognitive friction, unclear priorities that force constant decision-making, interruptions that shatter focus, systems that require mental energy to navigate. Emotional friction, tasks that feel imposed rather than chosen, work that conflicts with your values, environments that trigger stress responses. Most people accept this friction as inevitable. They assume work is supposed to be hard, that resistance is natural, that effortless performance is reserved for the genetically gifted. They're wrong. Effortless action begins with a friction audit. Look at your workspace with fresh eyes. Is your monitor at the right height, or do you crane your neck all day? Is your lighting optimal, or do you squint through glare and shadows? Are your most used tools within easy reach, or do you constantly interrupt your flow to search for what you need? These seem like minor details, but they compound into massive energy drains. Every small irritation requires a microdose of willpower to overcome. By noon, you've spent more mental energy managing friction than producing results. The fix is systematic optimization. Adjust your monitor height, upgrade your lighting, organize your tools, create what researchers call ecological fit, an environment so well designed that productive behavior becomes the path of least resistance. But physical friction is just the beginning. The deeper transformation happens when you shift your language from obligation to choice. Notice how often you use phrases like, I have to, I should, or I must. Each time, you're signaling to your brain that you're being forced into action. Your nervous system responds by generating resistance. The same task that feels burdensome when framed as obligation becomes energizing when reframed as choice. Replace "I have to finish this report" with "I choose to complete this analysis because it advances my strategic thinking." Replace "I should attend this meeting" with "I choose to participate because it builds key relationships." Replace "I must respond to these emails" with "I choose to clear my inbox because it creates mental space for deep work." This isn't positive thinking, it's neurological reprogramming. When your brain perceives autonomy, it releases energy. When it perceives coercion, it conserves energy. Same action, completely different internal experience. The next level of effortless action involves strategic batching. Your energy naturally fluctuates throughout the day. Instead of fighting these rhythms, design your schedule around them. Batch low-cognition tasks during your natural energy valleys. Save creative work for your peaks. Match task demands to your biological capacity. Use standing or walking meetings to leverage the connection between movement and ideation. Your brain generates more creative solutions when your body is in motion. What feels like a simple change in posture actually triggers neurochemical shifts that enhance cognitive performance. Keep a flow starter playlist that cues immediate immersion. Just as athletes use pre-game rituals to access peak states, you can use auditory triggers to shift into focused attention. The same songs, played consistently before deep work, become Pavlovian cues for effortless concentration. When this system integrates, 3 levels of transformation become possible. At the good level, tasks feel 10% lighter. You notice less resistance, more flow, greater ease in your daily work. Small optimizations compound into noticeable energy gains. At the excellent level, you reclaim 2 hours per day from friction elimination. Work that previously required intense effort now feels natural. You accomplish more while feeling less drained. But at the best level, something remarkable happens. Colleagues start describing you as an effortless high performer. You become known for producing exceptional results without apparent strain. People wonder how you make difficult tasks look easy. 2 pitfalls can undermine this process. The first is overtuning. In pursuit of perfect optimization, you can create such a controlled environment that it becomes monotonous. Your brain needs some novelty and challenge to stay engaged. Periodically introduce complexity bursts or change your environment to maintain cognitive stimulation. The second is language regression. Under stress, you'll naturally revert to obligation-based self-talk. Set hourly reminders to check your internal dialogue. When you catch yourself using must or should, immediately reframe with choice language. The ancient masters understood something modern productivity culture has forgotten. Sustainable high performance isn't about overpowering resistance. It's about eliminating the sources of resistance so your natural capabilities can flow freely. When you align your environment, your language, and your energy with your goals, something magical happens. Work stops feeling like work. Effort transforms into engagement. Productivity becomes a natural expression of who you are rather than something you force yourself to do. But there's an even deeper level of effortless action waiting, one that doesn't just eliminate friction, but actually creates momentum that builds on itself day after day, turning small improvements into exponential gains. Chapter 6: Incremental Edge. There's a mathematical secret that separates world-class performers from everyone else, and it's hiding in plain sight. If you improve by just 1% every day for 1 year, you don't get 365% better. You get 3,778% better. That's the power of compound improvement, a force so potent that Einstein allegedly called it the 8th wonder of the world. But here's what most people miss. The magic isn't in the math. It's in the psychology. While everyone else is paralyzed by the gap between where they are and where they want to be, masters have discovered the secret of making progress feel inevitable rather than overwhelming. They've learned to think like water. Water doesn't try to smash through rock. It doesn't gather its strength for one massive assault. Instead, it finds the smallest possible path and flows consistently, day after day, year after year. Eventually, it carves the Grand Canyon. This principle has a name in Japanese business philosophy, Kaizen, literally meaning change for the better, but that translation misses its revolutionary power. Kaizen isn't about improvement, it's about making improvement so small, so non-threatening, so obviously beneficial that resistance becomes impossible. Most people approach growth like they're trying to climb Mount Everest in a single day. They set massive goals, design elaborate plans, and launch into heroic efforts that burn out within weeks. Then they wonder why change feels so hard, why motivation fades, why they keep returning to old patterns. But what if there was a way to make progress feel effortless? What if you could upgrade your capabilities so gradually that your brain never triggered resistance mechanisms? What if improvement became as natural as breathing? The research from manufacturing reveals something stunning. When a Spanish production facility implemented daily Kaizen practices, asking every worker to identify one small improvement each day, productivity jumped 25% and quality increased 30% within 6 months. Not through massive overhauls or expensive technology, but through hundreds of tiny optimizations that compounded into transformational results. Your brain is wired to resist big changes. When you announce, "I'm going to completely transform my productivity system," your amygdala interprets this as a threat to your current identity. It activates stress responses that make change feel difficult, uncomfortable, even dangerous. But your brain loves small improvements. A 1% upgrade feels safe, manageable, almost trivial. There's no identity threat, no stress response, no internal resistance. Your nervous system actually supports micro changes because they feel like natural evolution rather than forced transformation. This is the psychological hack that makes Kaizen so powerful. It bypasses your brain's change resistance mechanisms by making improvement feel like the obvious, natural choice. The key is asking one simple question at the end of each day: what 1% can I upgrade tomorrow? Not, how can I revolutionize my entire approach? Not, what massive change will solve all my problems? Just what tiny friction point can I smooth out? What small inefficiency can I eliminate? What minor upgrade can I make? Maybe it's adjusting your monitor height to reduce neck strain. Maybe it's creating a keyboard shortcut for a task you do repeatedly. Maybe it's moving your phone to another room during deep work sessions. Maybe it's writing tomorrow's top priority before you leave the office. Each improvement seems insignificant in isolation, but they compound. The monitor adjustment saves 30 seconds of discomfort every hour. The keyboard shortcut saves 15 seconds per use. The phone relocation prevents 5 minutes of distraction per session. The priority note saves 10 minutes of morning decision-making. By the end of the month, these micro-optimizations have reclaimed hours of time and energy. By the end of the quarter, they've transformed your entire operating system. By the end of the year, you're functioning at a level that would have seemed impossible when you started. The secret is designing fixes that take 5 minutes or less to implement. Your brain categorizes anything longer as a project that requires planning, motivation, and sustained effort. But 5-minute improvements feel like obvious maintenance, so simple that skipping them would be irrational. Use the 2-minute rule to spot quick wins. If you notice a friction point that could be solved in 2 minutes or less, fix it immediately. Don't add it to a list, don't schedule it for later, don't wait for a better time. The momentum of immediate action prevents small problems from becoming entrenched patterns. Rotate your Kaizen focus across 3 buckets: skills, tools, and mindset. This week, look for ways to upgrade your capabilities. Next week, optimize your systems and environment. The following week, refine your mental models and thought patterns. This rotation prevents tunnel vision while ensuring comprehensive improvement. Track your gains visually. Create simple graphs showing minutes saved, errors avoided, or efficiency metrics. Your brain loves progress indicators, and visible improvement creates motivation for continued optimization. What gets measured gets managed, and what gets celebrated gets repeated. When this system integrates, 3 levels of transformation become possible. At the good level, you'll save 5 hours per month through accumulated micro improvements. Small friction points disappear, daily tasks become smoother, you notice less resistance and more flow in your routine activities. At the excellent level, your throughput increases 25% within 90 days. The compound effect of dozens of small optimizations creates dramatic capability gains. Work that previously took hours compresses into focused sessions. Quality improves while effort decreases. But at the best level, something remarkable happens. You develop a culture of relentless refinement. Continuous improvement becomes your default mode. You start seeing optimization opportunities everywhere. Your team catches the mindset and begins suggesting their own improvements. Excellence becomes a habit rather than an event. Two obstacles can derail this process, and you need strategies for both. The first is improvement fatigue. After weeks of daily optimization, the practice can start feeling mechanical or burdensome. Combat this by celebrating visible scoreboard victories. When you save your 100th minute or eliminate your 50th friction point, acknowledge the milestone. Recognition reinforces the behavior and maintains motivation. The second is plateau effect. Eventually, obvious improvements become scarce. When this happens, escalate to the 10x question. How would I need to operate to achieve 10 times my current results? This forces you to think beyond incremental tweaks and consider structural changes that create step function improvements. The beauty of Kaizen is its sustainability. You're not relying on willpower, motivation, or dramatic lifestyle changes. You're simply asking your brain to do what it already wants to do, solve small problems and make things slightly better. Most people underestimate the power of small improvements because they can't see the compound effect. They want dramatic transformations, instant results, obvious progress. But the most powerful changes happen gradually, almost invisibly, until one day you realize you're operating at a completely different level. The Japanese have a saying, fall down 7 times, get up 8. But Kaizen teaches us something even more powerful. If you improve the way you get up by just 1% each time, eventually you'll stop falling down at all. Your incremental edge is building right now, whether you're directing it or not. Every day you're either getting slightly better or slightly worse. There's no standing still. The question isn't whether you'll change, it's whether you'll guide that change intentionally. But there's something even more powerful than external optimization waiting to be unlocked. An internal engine that makes all improvement feel not just effortless, but genuinely exciting. And it has everything to do with rediscovering what actually drives you at the deepest level. Chapter 7, Intrinsic Engine. There's a fuel source inside you that never runs dry, but most people never learn how to access it. You've been conditioned to believe that motivation comes from external rewards, the promotion, the bonus, the recognition, the approval. So you chase these carrots, hoping they'll sustain your drive. And for a while, they do. The excitement of a new goal energizes you. The promise of a reward pushes you forward. Then something strange happens. The promotion loses its shine. The bonus gets absorbed into your lifestyle. The recognition feels hollow. What once motivated you now feels like just another obligation. You find yourself asking, is this all there is? You're experiencing what psychologists call hedonic adaptation. Your brain's tendency to return to baseline happiness regardless of external achievements. But there's something deeper happening here, something that reveals the fundamental flaw in how most people think about motivation. You've been running on the wrong fuel. External motivators are like sugar. They provide quick energy that crashes just as fast. But there's another energy source available to you, one that burns clean and steady for decades. It's not dependent on what others give you or what circumstances provide. It comes from within, and once you learn to tap into it, everything changes. Scientists call this intrinsic motivation, but that clinical term doesn't capture its transformative power. When you're running on intrinsic fuel, work doesn't feel like work. Challenges become adventures. Obstacles become puzzles. You stop watching the clock and start losing track of time. The research is remarkable. When researchers analyzed motivation across educational settings, they discovered that people pursuing intrinsically motivated goals persisted 2.3 times longer than those chasing external rewards. Not slightly longer, more than twice as long. Same people, same capabilities, dramatically different endurance based solely on the source of their motivation. But here's what most people don't understand. Intrinsic motivation isn't mysterious or random. It's not something you're born with or without. It's a system you can engineer by satisfying three fundamental psychological needs that every human shares. The first need is autonomy, the feeling that you're acting from choice rather than compulsion. When you feel controlled, micromanaged, or forced into action, your motivation withers. When you feel free to choose your path, your energy multiplies. The second need is competence, the sense that you're growing, improving, making progress toward mastery. When tasks feel too easy, you get bored. When they feel impossible, you get anxious. But when you're operating right at the edge of your capabilities, learning and growing, motivation becomes self-sustaining. The third need is relatedness, the feeling that you're connected to something larger than yourself, that your work matters to people you care about. Humans are social creatures. We thrive when we feel part of a meaningful community working toward shared goals. When all three needs are satisfied simultaneously, something magical happens. Your motivation becomes self-generating. You don't need external rewards to keep going because the activity itself becomes rewarding. You've tapped into your intrinsic engine. Most people's work environments systematically undermine these three needs. They feel controlled by rigid schedules and micromanagement. They're stuck in roles that don't challenge their growing capabilities. They work in isolation, disconnected from the impact of their efforts. Then they wonder why Monday mornings feel like torture. But you can redesign your experience to feed your intrinsic engine even within existing constraints. Start by conducting an autonomy audit. Where in your work do you feel controlled versus free to choose? Maybe you can't control your meeting schedule, but you can control how you prepare for those meetings. Maybe you can't choose your projects, but you can choose your approach to completing them. Maybe you can't set your hours, but you can design your workspace and workflow. Look for autonomy leaks, places where you've unconsciously surrendered choice. Do you check email reactively or proactively? Do you let others set your priorities, or do you consciously choose what matters most? Do you follow prescribed methods, or do you experiment with better approaches? Every small increase in autonomy feeds your intrinsic engine. When you shift from I have to I choose to, the same task transforms from burden to opportunity. Next, engineer competence experiences. Your brain craves growth, but it needs to perceive that growth clearly. Structure your work to provide regular feedback on improvement. Track metrics that matter. Celebrate skill development. Seek challenges that stretch you just beyond your current capabilities. Create what researchers call competence sweet spots, tasks that are roughly 70% within your current abilities and 30% stretch. Too easy, and you'll disengage from boredom. Too hard, and you'll shut down from overwhelm. But right at that edge, your brain releases the neurochemicals that make effort feel rewarding. Finally, strengthen your sense of relatedness. Connect your daily tasks to larger purposes that matter to you. Use why stacks to link routine work to personal values. If you're analyzing data, remind yourself that accurate analysis leads to better decisions, which creates value for customers, which improves lives. If you're managing a team, remember that your leadership development helps others grow, which strengthens the organization, which serves the mission you care about. Find mastery partners, people who share your commitment to excellence and can mirror your competence development. When you're surrounded by others who are also growing, your own development accelerates through positive peer pressure and shared learning. Rate your current projects on autonomy, competence, and relatedness using a simple 1-10 scale. Whichever dimension scores lowest becomes your optimization target. If autonomy is weak, find ways to increase choice and control. If competence is lacking, adjust challenge levels or seek better feedback. If relatedness is missing, strengthen connections to purpose and community. Re-rate monthly to monitor your motivation health. Just as you track physical fitness, you need to track psychological fitness. When your intrinsic engine is running strong, you'll notice several changes. At the good level, procrastination drops noticeably. You'll find yourself naturally gravitating toward important work instead of avoiding it. The internal resistance that used to require willpower to overcome simply fades away. At the excellent level, your persistence on stretch goals doubles. When you hit obstacles, instead of giving up, you get curious. Instead of feeling defeated, you feel challenged. The same setbacks that used to derail you become fuel for continued effort. But at the best level, something profound happens. Intrinsic drive becomes your default mode. External rewards become nice bonuses rather than necessary fuel. You stop needing others to motivate you because you've learned to motivate yourself. You become what psychologists call self-determined, someone whose energy comes from within rather than from external circumstances. Two pitfalls can undermine this process. The first is autonomy overload. Too much choice can create decision fatigue and actually reduce motivation. If you find yourself paralyzed by options, set helpful constraints. Create frameworks that guide decisions without eliminating choice entirely. The second is competence gap anxiety. When the stretch between current ability and required performance feels too large, anxiety overwhelms motivation. Shrink the challenge until you feel roughly 70% confident in your ability to succeed, then gradually increase difficulty as your skills develop. Your intrinsic engine is always available. It doesn't depend on your boss's approval, your company's reward system, or external circumstances. It depends on how well you satisfy your fundamental needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Most people spend their entire careers waiting for others to motivate them. They hope for inspiring leaders, meaningful projects, and recognition for their efforts. Sometimes they get these things, sometimes they don't, but they're always dependent on external factors beyond their control. You're about to become different. You're learning to generate your own motivation, to find meaning in any work, to create energy from within. This isn't just a productivity strategy, it's a fundamental shift in how you relate to effort, challenge, and growth. But there's one more element that transforms everything you've learned so far from a collection of techniques into a seamless system that runs itself. And it has everything to do with developing a kind of awareness that most people never cultivate. Chapter 8, Self-Radar. There's a hidden skill that separates elite performers from everyone else, and it's not what you think. It's not superior intelligence, better training, or natural talent. It's not working longer hours, having more willpower, or accessing better resources. The differentiator is something far more subtle, yet infinitely more powerful. The ability to detect when they're drifting off course before anyone else notices, including themselves. Think about the last time you had a truly productive day. Everything clicked. You stayed focused, made real progress, and felt energized rather than drained. Now think about yesterday. Chances are it felt different. Maybe you got distracted by emails. Maybe you spent too long on low-priority tasks. Maybe you pushed through when you should have taken a break, or took a break when you should have pushed through. What separated those two experiences? Was it external circumstances, random luck, or something you could have controlled? The answer reveals the most underutilized skill in personal development, metacognitive monitoring. It's the ability to observe your own thinking and behavior in real time, like having an objective observer sitting on a balcony watching your performance and whispering course corrections in your ear. Most people operate on autopilot. They react to whatever demands their attention, follow whatever impulse feels strongest, and hope for the best. When things go well, they can't explain why. When things go poorly, they blame external factors. They're flying blind through their own lives. But elite performers have developed something different, an internal radar system that constantly scans for drift, distraction, and inefficiency. They catch small problems before they become big ones. They adjust their approach in real time, rather than waiting for quarterly reviews. They steer their performance with the precision of a fighter pilot rather than the randomness of a leaf in the wind. The research is striking. When educational psychologists taught students simple self-questioning techniques, problem-solving speed increased by 34%, and academic achievement improved across multiple domains, not through harder work or better content, but through better awareness of their own thinking processes. Your brain is constantly generating information about your performance, but most of it operates below conscious awareness. You sense when your attention is wandering, when your energy is flagging, when your approach isn't working. But these signals remain vague intuitions rather than actionable data. The key is building systematic check-in loops that translate these subtle signals into conscious awareness and immediate adjustments. Set a timer for 60 minutes. When it buzzes, pause whatever you're doing and ask yourself two simple questions. Am I on target? And is my effort aligned with ease? These aren't complex evaluations requiring deep analysis. They're quick pulse checks that take 30 seconds or less. The first question, am I on target, reveals whether you're working on what actually matters. It's shocking how often we drift into busy work, reactive tasks, or perfectionist rabbit holes without realizing it. This simple check catches drift early when course correction requires minimal effort. The second question, is effort aligned with ease, reveals whether you're working with your natural rhythms or against them. Sometimes you need to push through resistance. Sometimes you need to step back and find a better approach. This question helps you distinguish between productive challenge and counterproductive struggle. When you notice deviation, don't judge it. Simply log it and design one small preventive tweak for your next work cycle. Maybe you need to silence notifications. Maybe you need to break a large task into smaller pieces. Maybe you need to switch to a different type of work that matches your current energy level. The magic isn't in perfect execution, it's in rapid detection and adjustment. Elite performers don't make fewer mistakes, they catch and correct mistakes faster. Use color-coded task lists to visualize drift patterns, green for on-target and flowing, yellow for on-target but struggling, red for off-target. Over time, you'll notice patterns. Maybe you consistently hit red zones after lunch. Maybe yellow zones cluster around certain types of tasks. Maybe green zones correlate with specific environmental conditions. These patterns become predictive intelligence. Instead of reacting to problems after they occur, you can prevent them by adjusting conditions proactively. Pair your reflection moments with micro stretches to reset your physiology. Stand up, take 3 deep breaths, adjust your posture. This isn't just about physical comfort. It's about creating a neurological reset that enhances the next work cycle. Your body holds tremendous wisdom about your performance state. Tension in your shoulders might signal that you're forcing an approach that isn't working. Restlessness might indicate that you need more challenge. Fatigue might mean you need a different type of task or a genuine break. Learning to read these somatic signals transforms them from background noise into performance data. When this system integrates, 3 levels of mastery become possible. At the good level, you'll catch obvious distractions within 10 minutes instead of losing entire hours to them. You'll notice when you're checking social media, when you're overthinking simple decisions, when you're avoiding important tasks. This basic awareness alone can reclaim hours of productive time each week. At the excellent level, you'll maintain 90% or higher task alignment daily. You'll spend the vast majority of your time working on what actually matters in ways that feel sustainable rather than forced. Your days will feel intentional rather than reactive. But at the best level, something extraordinary happens. You develop predictive intuition. You'll sense drift before it happens and make adjustments preemptively. You'll feel when your energy is about to flag and switch tasks proactively. You'll notice when your approach is starting to feel forced and find a better path before hitting a wall. This isn't mystical. It's the result of thousands of micro-observations that train your unconscious pattern recognition systems to detect subtle performance signals. Two obstacles can undermine this process. The first is over-analysis paralysis. Some people become so focused on monitoring their performance that they stop performing altogether. If you find yourself spending more time analyzing than executing, limit check-ins to 30 seconds maximum. The goal is awareness, not perfection. The second is data hoarding without action. It's easy to become fascinated by tracking patterns without actually using that information to improve. Enforce a one-tweak rule. Every observation must generate at least one small adjustment for the next cycle. Your self-radar is always active, but most people never learn to read its signals consciously. They sense when something isn't working, but can't articulate what or why. They feel when they're in flow, but can't recreate the conditions that produced it. By building systematic awareness of your own thinking and performance patterns, you gain something invaluable: the ability to optimize your approach in real time rather than hoping for accidental success. This isn't about becoming self-critical or obsessively analytical. It's about developing the same kind of performance awareness that allows athletes to adjust their technique mid-game, musicians to modulate their expression mid-song, and surgeons to adapt their approach mid-operation. You're learning to become the pilot of your own performance rather than a passenger hoping for a smooth flight. But there's one final integration that transforms everything you've learned from a collection of powerful techniques into something even more profound, a way of being that makes limitless growth not just possible, but inevitable. Chapter 9: Boundless Horizons. You've just acquired something most people spend their entire careers searching for: a system that makes growth inevitable rather than accidental. Look back at where you started. 8 chapters ago, you were trapped in the same cycles that limit 99% of ambitious professionals: decision fatigue, draining your focus, fixed mindsets capping your potential, friction-laden habits burning through willpower like a broken fuel line. Now you possess something different, something powerful, something that changes everything about how you relate to challenge, growth, and possibility. You've built what I call the Limitless loop, a self-reinforcing system where beliefs unlock behaviors, behaviors trigger flow states, flow reveals alignment opportunities, alignment enables effortless action, small improvements compound into quantum leaps, intrinsic motivation sustains the entire cycle, and metacognitive awareness keeps everything optimized in real time. This isn't just a productivity framework, it's a complete operating system for human potential. But here's what makes this truly revolutionary. Each element amplifies every other element. Your growth mindset makes identity-based habits feel natural. Your flow states reveal friction points for Kaizen optimization. Your intrinsic motivation fuels deeper self-awareness. Your metacognitive monitoring fine-tunes your belief systems. You've created a flywheel that gets stronger with every revolution. Most people approach personal development like they're collecting tools: a habit here, a mindset shift there, a productivity technique somewhere else. They accumulate strategies but never integrate them into a coherent system. So they experience temporary improvements that fade when motivation wanes or circumstances change. You've done something different. You've built an engine that runs on its own momentum, powered by forces that strengthen rather than deplete with use. This transforms everything about how you show up in the world. First, you now possess self-sourced momentum. You don't need permission to grow, approval to improve, or external validation to pursue mastery. Your development is no longer dependent on having the perfect boss, the ideal company culture, or optimal circumstances. You carry your own environment with you. When others are waiting for conditions to improve, you're creating the conditions you need. When others are hoping for inspiration to strike, you're engineering flow states on demand. When others are burning out from unsustainable effort, you're finding the path of least resistance to maximum results. Second, you've developed strategic clarity that makes decisions feel obvious rather than overwhelming. Your metacognitive radar detects drift before it becomes costly. Your intrinsic motivation compass points toward choices that energize rather than drain you. Your Kaizen mindset turns every obstacle into an optimization opportunity. You're no longer paralyzed by analysis or second-guessing your choices. You've internalized frameworks that cut through complexity and reveal the essential actions that drive real progress. But the impact extends far beyond your individual performance. Your relationships transform when you operate from authentic autonomy rather than reactive neediness. People sense when someone is internally driven versus externally dependent. They're drawn to individuals who radiate quiet confidence, who contribute value without keeping score, who remain calm under pressure because they're not desperately seeking validation. Your flow state presence becomes magnetic. When you're fully engaged in conversations, genuinely curious about others' perspectives, and unattached to proving your worth, people feel heard and valued. Conflict decreases because you're not defending a fragile ego. Collaboration increases because you're focused on outcomes rather than credit. You become someone others want to work with, learn from, and follow, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you've become genuinely impressive through your commitment to continuous growth. Your capabilities expand in ways that would have seemed impossible before. Complex projects that once felt overwhelming now feel like engaging puzzles. You approach them with systematic thinking, break them into flow-friendly segments, optimize your approach through rapid iteration, and maintain motivation through intrinsic connection to purpose. You learn new skills twice as fast because you've optimized the learning process itself. You know how to create the right challenge-skill balance. You know how to structure practice for maximum neuroplasticity. You know how to maintain motivation when progress feels slow. You know how to detect and correct errors before they become entrenched patterns. Most remarkably, the entire system becomes easier with repetition rather than harder. Each time you apply these principles, you strengthen the neural pathways that make them feel natural. Each success builds confidence that makes the next challenge feel manageable. Each optimization creates momentum that carries you toward the next opportunity. Growth becomes the path of least resistance rather than the path of most effort. This is the secret that separates lifelong learners from people who plateau. They've made improvement feel inevitable rather than optional, natural rather than forced, energizing rather than draining. You're about to join their ranks. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. You can understand every principle in this book and remain exactly where you started if you don't translate understanding into systematic practice. So here's what you're going to do tonight. Before you sleep, before you check your phone, before you get distracted by the thousand small urgencies that will try to steal your momentum, you're going to draft your 90-day limitless expansion plan. Not a vague intention to get better or a generic goal to be more productive. A specific, measurable, time-bound commitment to implementing one element of this system every 2 weeks until the entire loop is running automatically. Week 1 to 2, install your growth charter and bias-proof decision template. Choose one limiting belief to reframe as an expandable circuit. Practice the My Circuit Needs Reps language until it becomes automatic. Week 3-4, design your identity loop. Pick one aspirational persona and create a 2-minute daily ritual that proves you're becoming that person. Track your streak visually. Week 5-6, engineer your first consistent flow state. Map your ultradian rhythms, protect your peak windows, and schedule your hardest work when your brain is operating at maximum capacity. Week 7-8, conduct your friction audit and implement Wu Wei principles. Eliminate 3 sources of resistance from your environment. Replace obligation language with choice language. Week 9-10, launch your Kaizen practice. End each day by identifying one 1% improvement for tomorrow. Implement fixes that take 5 minutes or less. Week 11-12, optimize your intrinsic motivation by rating current projects on autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Upgrade your lowest score through environmental design or reframing. Week 13, install your metacognitive monitoring system. Set hourly check-ins and practice the 2-question assessment until it becomes unconscious competence. By day 90, you won't just understand these principles, you'll embody them. They'll be wired into your nervous system, integrated into your identity, and expressed through your daily actions without conscious effort. But here's the real payoff. The reason this matters more than any productivity hack or life optimization technique you've ever encountered. You're not just building a better version of who you are today. You're becoming someone who can adapt to any future, master any challenge, and thrive in any environment. You're developing what researchers call meta skills, the ability to learn how to learn, to grow how to grow, to optimize how to optimize. In a world where change is accelerating, where artificial intelligence is automating routine work, where the half-life of specific skills is shrinking rapidly, this adaptability isn't just an advantage, it's survival. The future belongs to people who can reinvent themselves continuously, who can find opportunity in disruption, who can turn uncertainty into excitement rather than anxiety. People who have internalized the principles of limitless growth. You're becoming one of those people. 5 years from now, when others are struggling to keep up with changes they didn't see coming, you'll be riding the wave of transformation because you've learned to transform yourself. When others are paralyzed by complexity, you'll be finding elegant solutions because you've trained your brain to see patterns and possibilities. When others are burning out from unsustainable effort, you'll be operating in flow because you've learned to work with your nature rather than against it. This is your moment. This is your choice. This is your chance to step into a version of yourself that currently exists only as potential. The system is built. The path is clear. The only question remaining is whether you'll take the first step tonight or spend another day, another week, another year wondering what might have been possible if you'd just begun. Momentum loves motion. The universe rewards action. Your future self is waiting for you to make the choice that changes everything. The time for preparation is over. The time for transformation is now. Your limitless journey begins with a single decision. Will you draft that plan tonight, or will you let this moment pass like all the others? The choice is yours, but choose quickly, because every second you hesitate is another second your competition pulls ahead, another second your potential remains locked away, another second closer to looking back with regret instead of forward with excitement. Your boundless horizons are waiting. The only question is whether you're ready to claim them.